And we'll go ahead and start with roll call.
All right, thanks everyone for coming. I'm gonna start with Member Gaskell,
Present.
Member Canizares, here. Member Felton,
Present.
Member Collins,
Present.
Member Harris,
Present.
Member Loveland,
Present.
Member Mackenzie Tucker,
Present.
Member Pacheco,
Present.
Member Porter.
Present.
For the record, we do have 2 vacant positions. AAG McCracken, for the record, will not be present for the start of this meeting. She's planning on attending as soon as she's available, likely towards executive session. Staff Executive Director Dresselhaus.
Present.
Staff Member Brown.
Present.
I, Staff Member Christopher, am present. Staff Member Hune.
Present.
Staff Member Itkin.
Present.
Staff Member Kenny.
Present.
Staff Member Little.
Present.
Anyone I didn't account for, that's staff or board members? All right, that concludes roll call.
Thank you, Ryan. Board meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve the May 10th, 2022? That's what it says.
Yeah, it was, we needed clarification
Oh.
on it before we
Okay.
could present it, so yeah.
Do I hear a motion to approve the May 10th, 2022 minutes?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. And then January 2024. Do I hear a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, guys. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 January 24, 2024. Do I hear a motion to approve those minutes?
So move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any? All right, thank you. Just some comments for me. It's so nice to have public here. Thank you for all being here. Looks like we have some on the screen too. So that's great. Calling in, all that is good stuff. Looking forward to a long day with all of you. So that's going to be fun. And now we're ready for the executive director's report.
Would it be helpful for, Ryan, would it be helpful for guests to
Oh, do you want
maybe
to?
just say who they are and who they represent?
Yeah.
So we all know, have an idea?
If we want to go around the room and we can start, let's see with who left my sign-in sheet. You can just introduce yourselves if you'd like.
The lady in the pink.
There we go.
Or coral. Is that coral or pink? I don't know.
Kind of both.
Jackson, I go by Jack. I'm the general manager for Young's Funeral Home, Take Paxton and Springer, the Sellers, and Ross Hollywood.
Kim Jackson, General Manager of Baton Carroll Funeral Home in Davies Creek.
Lisa Diamond, General Manager of Skyline Memorial Gardens and Funeral Home.
Holly Houston, owner of Columbia Funeral Home and Columbia Memorial Gardens. Today, I am here representing the Oregon Funeral Directors Association, which I'm currently the president of.
I'm Dave Bone. I am a proud ex-SC employee at all the locations that are past president of this body. So I travel a few moments.
Hi, good morning. Serena Trexler with Review Natural Organic Reduction, Synergy First Call Mortuary, Director of Dispositions. Hi, I'm Lindsay Smith. I work in administration at Riverview Cemetery. I also work with the Oregon Memorial Association.
Great. Do those of you on the phone or computer want to identify yourselves at all?
Jessica Darling. I'm with Synergy First.
Oh, can't hear.
Jessica, you're rather quiet. I don't know if there's a way for you to make yourself louder.
What about now? Can you hear me okay now?
Little bit.
Little bit.
Quiet.
Representing Synergy First Call.
Thanks. How about CR?
That's
That's right.
That's you. Oh.
P, maybe P.
Pete? How about a KM?
Good morning, I'm Kelly Mount Satson. I'm the business manager for City of Bend and oversee the Pilot Butte Cemetery. Nice to be here with all of you.
Nice to have you. RF?
They introduce themselves in the chat.
Okay, how about MF? Anyone else? Well, thank you all for being here. It looks like P's trying to say something, maybe.
You may need to unmute yourself.
OP is our room.
Oh. Well, at least
With too many.
we're pretty, not smart. Okay.
Rookie has it.
Oh, Rugi, yes. Oh, hi. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us your deepest, darkest secret? That's what everybody else has done. How about just,
I'm the general manager for the Salem area of Clearstone. So I cover Russell, Kaiser, and Armstrong. Deepest, darkest.
no, I was,
Okay.
Oh, we're good, we're good. Oh, we're
so yeah. Thank you for sharing.
I do feel like I want to mention, and sorry to interrupt, but for the record, this is being recorded.
Mhm. Thank you, Ryan.
If we have to censor anything.
Okay, now how about the presentation from the big man on campus here?
Second to the big man, should we say. Okay, ED report. Revenue expenses, you'll see we're, I guess, well positioned, if you will. And then below it, it shows since I believe this is one of the first representations of the new year. This is just the projections of the revenue we're expected to receive as an agency, both with the IDP fund as well as the remaining funds that will come to our account. Any questions on that? And then just to kind of give context, these projections are based upon the state economist office that provides the projected number of deaths for the years that we're talking about, which is 23, 25.
And are they pulling that data from Oregon Vital Records?
Well, they provide a report that, I don't know if that's a good question. I don't know if it's how often it's updated, but they do.
Updated quarterly.
Okay, then it is assumedly updated with Vital Record.
Can we maybe next meeting just kind of see a copy of that report?
Yeah, oh, sure.
It would
Yeah.
be interesting to see.
Actually, if I provide a link on it, so if you click on it, maybe it'll take you to that
Let's see.
report.
It does. Okay, thank you.
All right.
Good.
I try, so hopefully technology works. Sometimes you're not sure about that. So, but did you want me to do anything for? So yeah, if you need to on your iPad, not as easy on paper. I don't think an open can do that. But if you click on it on your iPad, it should link you to that report that shows the projected death. It's a wealth of information. I think it does regional deaths, births, all kinds of things. So it's really interesting to look at of the projections. So any question about budget? I think we'll have more with Nancy a bit later about budget, right? Or finances. So licensing, you'll see that there are, now it's reached the point to where licenses are in the permanently lapsed stage. So you'll see those starting on page 2 through page 4. Those are the individuals. And I think Brian will talk a bit about license renewal later in the agenda. Any questions? Oh, and then you'll see the stats that we provide always in the chart, the table, specific licensing, the trends increasing or decreasing. And it's kind of a mixture, as you'll see. Next on to license examinations. The one thing that I will, as you know, it was all transferred to the conference. I actually, which I will talk a bit about, when I attended the conference annual meeting, spoke with some staff there. They're actually a bit behind because they were planning for the event. But they know that they owe us some reporting of those who've, those applicants who tested and the results of that. So we should be receiving that and be able to present that at the next board meeting. Does that sound appropriate, Ryan?
Correct.
Okay. So there'll be data from the conference of who, because I asked them, what kind of data, and they said, we're sorry, we were behind and we'll just provide you with that data. So next board meeting, you'll have updated information from the conference about, and hopefully it's good results of, I guess overall, have those who have kind of interacted with those who've tested, are there any kind of feedback on that of those who've tested at the Pearson View sites? And just kind of curious.
I really thought the Pearson View sites were very helpful.
Okay, so you tested there?
Yes.
Okay.
Not with this new batch. I took the last batch of the hard copy reviews.
Oh, yeah.
But for this mortuary tools purposes, it was really nice, really convenient. There's a lot of testing centers.
Yes.
So it helped with the timeline.
All right. Well, great to hear. Great to hear. And that's one of the main reasons was convenience, because rather than scheduling it, whatever times here, we thought open it up, allow people from wherever, out of state, in state, to go to the locations that are most convenient for them. And then they can test. And then, did someone have a comment?
Looks like someone tested in Medford as well.
Excellent. Excellent. Hopefully that experience was good as well. Yes,
I have a question as a member of the public. So there's a delay in the results of the exam.
A delay in getting us reporting. I don't think Ryan, have you gotten any completions from?
Examinees should be getting their results immediately after taking the exam. It's the reporting that
Okay,
we
the
don't know
data.
exactly how many people have
Okay.
taken it and how many people have passed and failed and so on.
All right, the data to us that we typically present, Ruby,
Perfect, thank you.
is the delay. It's not with applicants or test takers. Yeah. Great question though. Ryan, did you want to give an update on the death care consultant exam? I think we have an update, right?
I have
You on the spot?
an announcement that we have on Friday. I administered an exam for one individual who had applied for the death care consultant license and they passed their exam. This is the first person who's passed their exam since I've been on staff here for 4.5 years. So this is the first person who will receive this license. I think there was some historical thing where somebody had previously passed and then just declined actually getting their license. And I don't have all those details because that was before I came on, but essentially this will be the first person in history to receive this license.
Well, golden star. Yeah, I think you're correct, Ryan. That sounds familiar to where someone took it, passed it, but then just,
Well, it says October 2010, somebody passed it.
yeah, and someone just relinquished their license immediately for whatever reason. But I just thought that happened recently, so I thought we'd share that.
Because that was on Friday, that is information.
Yeah, sure.
not in this, but it will appear in the next DD report in this.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. Next, compliance overview inspections continues to maintain in pace of quality and numbers. So you'll see here, starting on page 8 and 9, you'll see the number of inspections that have been completed up to Q3 of January through March. And of course, you'll see more detail in executive session on the inspection report.
Good job, guys.
Any questions?
Recorded.
That was a fantastic display of workmanship on your part.
We capped it.
Any questions? There'll be more in executive session. So this is just to give you an snapshot overview. Investigations. You'll see on page 10, the update of where cases are, status overall from July, October, January, the meetings, and then starting on the bottom of page 10 through page 12, it shows the current status of the cases that were presented during the last board meeting. If there's any questions on that. I guess let me back up. Inspectors, did you want to add anything to? Sorry, I didn't ask that. Anything to the comments or anything?
Nothing to add. We're just meeting, I think, the overall expectations of the numbers and all the, got good success on cemeteries also as far as contacting them and getting the information we need.
Thank you. And it does appear that with the diligence of the inspectors, those who might not have been responsive in the past are actually starting to do that. So they're kind of getting into the groove, shall we say, or understanding kind of the process. So we're pleased that more facilities are responding and completing the process. So that's good, because I think historically, especially cemeteries, as we know, it can be challenging, especially when it's volunteer boards, kind of an aging population of management. So we're pleased of that improvement, that enhancement. Any question about cases? Obviously, we'll talk more about that in executive session, but then we can move on to IDP. Just to give you, there's an ED report. Did you get that at the front?
Looking for an ED report.
Is there one up there? If not, we can.
Might run out.
We might have one. We didn't expect.
We anticipated.
I'll give you mine when we're done.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can print one off if anyone needs one who doesn't have one. Okay. And then the IDP, it gives the information prior to House Bill 2120, which was $20 filing fee. Now it's 30. It kind of gives you the accounting of that. And then it just gives you a snapshot of the reimbursement rate recommendation. And actually that is the agenda item where you'll see the IDP year in review. So that'll provide more information. So I guess if Rob, if there's any questions, unless that.
Any questions about the executive director report? Okay, we have to make a motion for this.
I think we do to approve it.
We have a motion to approve the executive director report.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None being so passed. Okay. So now we get to the point of public comments. The board welcomes public comments. A sign-up form will be available. Is a sign-up form available? Before the start of general and public comments, anyone wishing to address the board is asked to sign up and will be recognized at that time by the board president. Advanced written copies of comments are appreciated. So it looks like we have Miss Holly has some comments.
Yeah, so like I said, I'm here today representing Green Funeral Directors Association. We just are kind of in the early stages of researching how funeral homes as well as other entities that perform work on behalf of medical examiners can get reimbursed. We're aware that it is in the county law. We think that it is. So we just want to try and put our best effort forward to start helping these facilities get reimbursed for the work that they're doing on behalf of medical examiners, like removals from place of death, transport to the medical examiner's office, and like I said, we're in the very early stages of it, but we just would like your support in moving forward with that, when we kind of figure out how we're going to be moving forward with that.
So Ollie, if in your county, if you make a call for the ME's office and you have to take it to Portland and they choose another funeral home, you get nothing.
I do now because I myself fought it in my county the last couple of years. I reached out to a county commissioner that I was friends with and they kind of went to bat for me. I put together about 3 or 4 years average of what I would have billed them had there been a fund set aside for that. And Columbia County did vote it in. So I now bill my DA monthly and get reimbursed for that. But there are a lot of funeral homes in other counties that don't have that availability. So yeah,
Good, I'm glad you're working on that. Good job.
I'll just say, I think that there is a considerable concern for how this impacts Oregonians. That oftentimes when funeral homes are trying to recoup those expenses of providing that transportation, the medical examiner's response is that you bill the family. And so there seems to be kind of a lack of transparency, and it's like it's a hot potato issue. And so this is not going to be something that OFDA is going to dig into and we're going to have a solution in 3 months. I wish that was the process, but this is going to be kind of long and ongoing. And we did just want to bring it forward to the OMCB, even though this is not the statutes that this agency regulates. It would not surprise me if maybe the medical examiner entities would start reaching out to OMCB to see if there's support for this. So we can continue to kind of provide updates of where we are, and we're really in the beginning stages of it. But it's a very complicated, multifaceted issue that I think people are going to get pretty charged up about. So just kind of a heads up that we're working on it.
I am also currently on a work group that is an improvement work group for the state medical examiner's office, and it has come up as a topic in that work group as well. So there's a lot of entities that are, it's kind of at the forefront of an issue that needs to be worked on.
So to simplify this in terms of the view of the public, which I'm the public member, is that if this is not ultimately resolved, there is a potential harm to the public, that the public might fall in between the cracks of who has to be liable for the fees for the transportation.
Correct. Funeral homes could ask.
I just want to put that on the record, that the interest for this body to protect the public.
Correct.
Therefore, there is obviously some skin in the game for us, so to speak. I just wanted to, I'm understanding you guys correctly. Okay, I'm naive in how the whole industry works, and that's how I'm articulating it in my mind.
That is correct. We
Okay.
are asking that the county medical examiner funds reimburse the funeral homes rather than the funeral homes ask the public to pay for that work.
Exactly. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And so like right now, we have nothing set forward in our county. And so when an autopsy is ordered by our DA, we drive to Portland, it's 265 miles. And then we drive back and we get paid nothing by our county. So I think it's great that you're working on it. Our other funeral home, it's enforced in that county, but in Union County out of LaGrande, there's nothing that's been set forth. So we don't ever get paid when we transport to Portland.
So in an ideal situation, if there's means for funding, that travel time is also mitigated. Therefore, there's better access to the public.
Yes, and we don't bill the family because we should, because we have that legal right to do it, but the family did not contract with us to do this service. So we don't bill for it. So we do that trip for free, and we do it several times a year. So I'm very happy you're working on it. And
I think that's the crux of it. Like the next of kin, the authorized representative is not the one authorizing it. It's the medical examiner.
Right.
So the point of view is like, if the county is the one requesting services, the county should pay for the service.
I agree.
And if the county does, it also facilitates access to care, and there's more facilitated. So the public is thus served because of better access, because they're two sides of the coin, protecting the public from unfair charges, but in the same time, facilitating the access to services that are vital, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I believe Dave Bone has a public comment.
Yeah, I didn't sign it.
Are we done with that topic? Okay, and then, okay, Mr. Bone.
I just want to, I think you guys are going to talk about this here in a minute relating to apprenticeships and requirements and things of that nature. That's the purpose of me being here today, was to ask for some clarification from the board. So several years ago, just for a little background, the board determined that an apprentice embalmer is able to count when they do disinfection, setting of features, dressing, and presenting a body for a viewing without arterial embalming. And as long as they got a signed authorization from the legal next of kin to do what would basically be a modified preparation or something to that effect, that the apprentice embalmer could count that prep as one of their required preps towards their 35, I believe it is, embalmings. So a few weeks ago, I have an apprentice, and a member of this board, who will not be named, Rob, has an apprentice. And they are friends, and they were talking to each other, and this subject came up about how many embalmings do you have, how many embalmings, and so forth. And there was a discrepancy on how our two funeral homes interpreted that part of the rules or the laws or whatever it goes down to, right? And so I called around to several places. I talked to Rob, I talked to Dwight Terry, who's also a funeral director and past president of this body. I talked with, I believe, Kevin about it, and I also talked with Mark Lund and Cottage Grove. And the answers were varied just as much as where those people were. So Dwight and I distinctly remember the board making this rule in the past. And so I guess my point is, well, when that conversation comes up, I would hope that there is some continuity in terms of what's already been decided and interpretations now. And I can get into the weeds of the ORSs or the rules as it relates to how they specifically break out the who can do what in a funeral home. And so if there is a funeral home that only has licensed FSPs on it and they don't have a licensed embalmer, then they should not be able to facilitate any kind of bathing, disinfection, setting of features of remains for any kind of viewing. And so it's very specific to who can do that. And so it seems to me like if an apprentice works in a funeral home and your funeral home's not a funeral home that does a lot of embalmings, but still has a lot of viewings, which is allowed by the law, then those remains have to be disinfected and there has to be some type of authorization from the next of kin. And so the laws break out specifically things like cosmetizing, disinfection, embalming, dressing and casketing. They're all specifically listed, but only under an embalmer apprentice or an embalmer, right? An FSP apprentice, that's not part of their apprenticeship. And so the other part of it that it says in relation to the apprentice rules, and again, I don't know the exact ones, but I'm sure somebody knows. It says that a embalming apprentice must assist with 35 embalmings. And so when you assist with an embalming, in theory, you can have an apprentice come into the prep room, set the features to get practice doing that, and leave. And my interpretation of that is they are assisting with an embalming, and that would count towards one of their required embalmings. And so for me, being able to count those minimal preps as embalmings, I think is beneficial to our industry because it streamlines the process for new people coming in. Again, we live in a cremation world in this part of the country, and embalmings are not the norm. And so obviously we could change that number, but whatever, I'm not looking for that. I'm just looking for clarification. And then it would be nice if the board would publish their findings and then keep a record of those findings, because I'm sure at some point in the past in the records is information about this and a ruling on this. So that's what I have to say about that.
I would like to also just, a funeral director cannot set features legally, only an apprentice embalmer or an embalmer, or not an apprentice funeral director. So if that's the case, And if my apprentice is assisting and I let her set the features and she can't find the vein and artery and I got to go in there and find it and inject, then does that count as she didn't do an embalming? No, she still did the embalming. So I think we need to put this into rule. I mean, obviously it's going to take more than this meeting to do that. But what is an embalming? You know, embalming is so much less than it used to be. You know, and it's almost impossible for my little funeral home to get 35 embalmings in an apprenticeship time in a year. So,
So I
full
would
arterial
recommend that
embalming.
we add this as a discussion item for the board, and I think it needs to be more encompassing than just defining a case. I think overall expectations about apprenticeships, how logs are recorded, when does a case count, the date? We've had several cases where this has come in for question, and there seems to be best practices and statutes that are in conflict. So I think it's time for us to dig in and actually provide clarity to licensees. I don't think anyone is wanting to do anything against the law, but if everyone's interpreting it differently, and then we're enforcing laws on people who feel like they're doing the right thing, then we have a major problem.
So Angela McKenzie Tucker will be leading that committee.
We're leading into possibly a potential rules advisory committee. So that.
Right, yeah, we're gonna have to we want to make this into rule, not just a discussion that we agree on like they did last time, right? That's kind of what happened and then it never got put into rule. So we want to, yeah, this is a process. It's not going to happen overnight. But then the question is, what do we do until then?
Right, so can there be a ruling now or at least some?
And a consensus?
I
Well, I don't know.
don't think there is now.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's multiple issues being discussed here, but it seems appropriate to do the rulemaking process where we would, in a sense, recruit for advisory committee members. And one that I would like, that should be included is Doug Farron from Mount Hood, because, you know, we need to take into account what they teach and how that applies. And I think there's multiple issues here. Is 35 embalmings too many? And maybe there's not just 35 embalmings, but maybe kind of subcategories of setting features and those types of things, or embalming. I know Rob is the expert of embalming, but raising vessels and those types of things, right? So I don't know how specific we want to get, but it sounds like we need to provide clarification on multiple things and kind of review their current requirements to see if they're reasonable in kind of today's times too, as
I
we've
guess
done.
the current question though is that when an apprenticeship log is submitted for someone to receive licensure, is there a question like if someone says, I worked on this case, but all I did was set features, do we count that case or do we not count that case? Like
Until further,
what is the current practice today? Apprenticeship log is submitted today. How do we process?
I would
it?
assume that we would do as we typically do until changed.
everybody's looking at Ryan.
Yeah.
So I want to mention that the apprenticeship log for an embalmer does not require anybody to list any description of what they've done. It just simply asks for the date the embalming occurred. So where people are going out of their way to let us know they only set features, on those cases, they do not count unless we can clearly see that setting the features was part of an embalming, like Rob was explaining, that would be a consideration. And we would say, yes, that person was embalmed. You've listed it on your embalming log. Your supervisor signed off on it saying this person was in fact embalmed, then that counts. But yeah, there's been some instances where we see setting features and it'll clearly say no embalming, yet it's there on the embalming log. So there's, we see that and it causes confusion. But in a general sense, if we saw just setting features and that was on the embalming log, I would not count it.
Orion's not very nice. That's
I will also mention that when we see this, the majority of time, they also have enough cases. So it's not that one instance of setting features makes it so they don't have the other 35.
So it's not typically not the difference between 34 and 35.
Right.
Gotcha. So that's what's happening currently at the state level, at the board level. So
So do the board then need to go back through people's apprentice logs and unlicensed people? Like, what's gonna happen? Like, I don't feel like that's clarification. Like,
I don't either.
And no disrespect, but I think that's Ryan's interpretation of that rule, because the rule says assist. I want to really stress that that rule says assist.
In embalming.
Right, but those are all embalming procedures that are specifically listed that only an embalmer or an embalmer apprentice can do. So why can't, if that doesn't count as an embalming and it's not something that only an embalmer should do, then why can't a FSP do that and count it towards their apprenticeship?
Exactly.
Yeah, Mary Ann.
I just wanted to remind people that staff do not work our own jobs in a vacuum. So questions like this that Ryan looks at the blog and said, and they specifically say, all I did was set features. Those kinds of discussions happen in staff meetings. They happen with ongoing discussions of staff. What do we all think is going on? So
This isn't just my interpretation.
correct.
I think we're gonna hold this off for now. We appreciate what you said, Dave, and there's a lot of value and you bring up great points that we do need to clarify. At this point, I think we could just conclude the conversation at this point. I will work with our AAG to determine what we will do moving forward until everything's.
But I do have a clarification. Are we as a board delegating staff to start establishing a rules advisory committee to deal with this?
I think we should.
Well, I'm just putting it on the table for us to decide, right? Meaning I don't want us to be in limbo, and I do have some concerns too that I'd like to address to Mr. Bone. So I do have a question for him, but that's first things first, right? I want to land the plane, sorry. Do we do a rules advisory committee as a board so that we can move this forward and delegate staff? I think that's the next step, right? I just don't want to put this in limbo.
I think we do need to have a kind of a listening campaign to see what's going on with our licensees and to hear the points that aren't working. I will volunteer to lead that rules advisory committee unless somebody wants to fight me for that.
So if I may, Mr. President, I'd like to put in a motion to establish and authorize staff to put a rules advisory committee to address this very single multifactorial issue of this rule.
Thank you, Rugi. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. So this is a very important part of why we're here, to get this kind of figured out.
I just have a question. Sorry, I don't want to. So, Mr. Bone, I would like you to address, I understand clearly about the lack of clarity with rule. Can you share with me what public harm could be without that clarity at this point? Because one of the things we can do is issue a temporary ruling while the rule advice. First things first, you need a rules advisory committee to be on board, right? Is give me the urgency of the matter, why we need clarity, other than just the misunderstanding of how the rule is interpreted. How can the public be potentially harmed if there's no clarity, immediate clarity, until the rules advisory committee clears this up?
So ultimately, I would say that it lies with the same weight that it would if it wasn't an apprentice and it was just an embalmer or a funeral service practitioner, in the sense that as far as for the public, like it states in the rules and statutes that you can't hold public viewings over unembalmed bodies. I think it might harm the public in the sense that it might be prohibitive for people that come into the industry to be able to get licensed in a timely enough manner that they want to continue in this business. I think the average person is only in the funeral business for about 5 years, I think is what I saw one time. And so, there's already a critical need for funeral directors because the death rate is skyrocketing up and the number of practitioners is dropping off. And so the ability to be able to bring new people in and get them up to speed to be able to work practically in an actual funeral home where embalmings are not necessarily something that happens on a daily basis, at least in a lot of the funeral homes in Oregon. Some funeral homes are, doing more embalmings than others. Some have centralized locations like SCI where they have people that embalm all day long, you know, for 13 locations or whatever it is they're doing. So to me, that's the harm in the public.
Okay.
Is just a lack of people who have an understanding of what they need to do, right? And I think there's probably potential harm to the public that exists now in terms of funeral homes that don't have embalmers and apprentice embalmers who are providing services that maybe they're not supposed to do, because like dressing and casketing is something that has to be supervised by an embalmer. And if you have funeral homes that are fully licensed that don't have embalmers on staff, how are they facilitating that? I think that's a good question to ask, right? Are there rules and laws being broken there that harm the public in a sense?
Oh, I'm going to now lean on my professional colleagues. Is it risen to the level that we should start thinking of a temporary ruling?
Well, I think because we have funeral homes that are doing it different ways, that and I talked to a few funeral directors, embalmers also, and the big thing is to me is you cannot set features on a deceased if you are not licensed as a apprentice or licensed embalmer. If you're a licensed funeral director, you cannot set features. So I really think we should lean towards having it be allowing setting the features, disinfecting without interior embalming as considered part of their embalmings until we, until we make it a rule of however it's decided by this board. Then we're all on the same page until we get this done. And then when we get that done, then we can really get it out there. This is what's expected. We're lowering it to 10 arterial embalmings. Everybody else can be whatever that looks like. If I honestly felt like it was going to hurt the public, because I'm a big one on that one, was the public hurt in this incident, then I would have a real problem with that. But I don't see where that's an issue as far as them not getting 35 vessels raised, if that makes sense.
And here's an example. We bought a funeral home last year over in Enterprise, Oregon, and we will, out of 100 funerals, we will probably embalm 5 people.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't imagine if our apprentice, which is at our location in LeGrand, and we do more embalmings there, but I couldn't imagine if I was trying to get an apprentice through at that funeral home, if I was a single funeral home operator, if we didn't allow setting features, my apprentice would not be able to get the the apprentice or the embalmer's certificate when things were all done, because we only did 5 embalmings. So I definitely support setting features as a practice, especially on the temporary part, just to resolve this current issue. And then we can discuss it as a board.
Here's a balance so that what we need to have is there should be a minimum, and we're kind of speculating, we're just talking here. There should be a minimum of embalmings that are done, because you don't want someone just setting features for 35 and then counting that embalming because they've never done it. So there should be a baseline, I think, of actual embalmings, whether it's raising vessels or all the special techniques. But that's a concern I have, is if you kind of open it up, and there is vagueness now, which could, but the concern I have is an embalm, because it's kind of the competency, right? An apprentice embalmer, an apprentice who completed let's say an individual who completed an embalming apprenticeship should be able to fill in the blank. And it's not set 35 features. It should be able to competently do an embalming, set features, raise vessels, all these things. So I think that's where we're maybe migrating towards, and defining better break. And maybe it's 35 total, but within that, does that mean 10 embalmings, actual embalmings, 5 setting features? So I'm just saying though that the concern I have is if you open it too wide, you could do a lot of other things and never do embalming. And if that counts as a That's a concern I have just for the public
Well,
because
and
no
I
one
don't
is.
think we'll ever get.
I'm just saying it could be used that way though, because if we're saying setting features can be counted, but there's no standard for that, I could claim 35 features and I've completed my apprenticeship.
Well,
I think that's what the Rules Advisory Committee should resolve.
Yeah.
yes.
So what if we could structure it as embalming stays embalming and setting features becomes like the death care consultant? Why not have a separate program? Because cremation is on the rise and setting features is a very minimal thing that someone can take a class on specifically for that and become a different apprenticeship. Because
But that doesn't solve our embalming issue right now. But I hear what you're saying, but that doesn't solve our issue
But I
today.
also think that's a slippery slope.
It
There's
is.
different type of regulations for vaccinations that are needed when you're exposed to bodily fluids, and the license is very, very different. So I think we're all kind of on the same page that this is something that needs to be dug into. And I think to Ruby's original question, the harm to the public is that at this point, like, what does it mean if you served your embalming apprenticeship? And it just kind of depends on who is your preceptor, what location did you serve at? And that's kind of a scary thing, that there's not a standard that's achieved through this process. And I think that's what we need to dig into.
And also, I've only allowed arterial embalming as counted for embalmings. Until our apprentices talked, I didn't know that was an option. But then I was listening, it's like, well, that kind of makes sense. So, go ahead.
I guess circling back to Mr. Bone, are you satisfied with the outcome that the Rules Advisory Committee that will delve into this?
Yeah.
Timely enough. I'm not hearing an urgency to the point where in which we need to maybe talk to our AG where we can do a temporary ruling.
The only sense of urgency I'm gonna put out there is the fact that we as an industry right now, our cycle, just so you know, like the kids graduate, or people, I'm sorry, graduate from the program usually in June. And that's when a lot of apprenticeship positions are filled in funeral homes. And it's usually after the 12-month requirement, certain number of hours, certain number of embalmings, that a lot of people coming up in June and July are going to be applying to be able to take their exams to become licensed. And so to me, there's a sense of urgency there in the sense that if, because of this conversation, right, an apprentice from somewhere, mine or somebody else, sends something into the board saying, I want to be, and then the board says, well, you know, we've determined that you've only actually done 8 embalmings and the rest of this stuff is like, doesn't count because it's not arterial embalming. And it could impact hiring and practices and availability for providers to be able to serve families. I mean, there are people who may leave funeral homes that don't have the ability to provide 35 arterial embalmings. And again, you may end up in scenarios where there's not enough staff to meet the need.
My apprentice will be with me a year in August. She has 10 arterial embalmings and she went through the files and counted up with a total of 32 if we count setting features, dressing and that kind of thing.
So
There's no way going to get to 35 by August.
What I would like to do, because I'm not sure if we could do a temporary ruling, I think we need Katrina here. So
Yeah, oh yeah.
comes on board, and then when we reconvene, we can see whether or not we have the basis to do a temporary rule while we have a Rules Advisory Committee with the concerns that are being brought up. I think that would resolve, and it'll be easy for staff, because if you have a temporary ruling, now it's not arbitrary staff. Because I don't want to put OMCB staff obviously on the microscope, right?
This is not
See it clear for them.
it's not fair to the staff that they're getting in.
Correct. So I think we need to ask AG first, Katrina, to see if we can do a temporary ruling now that we have delegated staff to do a Rules Advisory Committee. Sounds like a plan. I just want to make sure if we have the basis for it.
And I'm just wondering, kind of moving forward, because obviously we'll be getting applications, today and moving forward till the advisory committee. And I think maybe to Dave's point, well, first of all, let me back up. This is not Ryan's decision. This is ultimately mine because I'm the director. So If people have concerns about that, please bring it to me. But I do have concerns that all 35 setting features is an issue. So what I will say is, the thing I want to ask is, moving forward, because I think the board can direct, like moving forward at a kind of an administrative moving forward. What would the board be satisfied with at like a minimum of actual embalmings to count? Because I'm just wondering, would you be good with, let's say, 10 embalmings, and then the 25 could be a myriad of the other scope of practice? I mean, what kind of number would the board be good with?
So I'm not a licensed embalmer, but when I sit with our licensed embalmer and we talk about what we're gonna do with our apprentice, what I've said is we're not gonna, they're not gonna do 35 wash and sets, because that's not gonna accomplish anything. That doesn't help the next employer that this person goes to, because they really haven't demonstrated that they can embalm. So the benchmark is, can they demonstrate that they can embalm someone on their own with someone supervising, of course, but that's the benchmark. So it may be this particular person, probably about on the 15th one, they were good to go. The other thing is, there's other places like ours, I think they're gonna host your, so that they can come over and they can finish those off. And we're always welcome to do that. And it's like, we still don't do enough of them, but it's like, we're not gonna let this person do 35 wash and sets, but they are going to be able to have to do enough of the vascular embalmings and whatever to demonstrate that they know what they're doing.
But I appreciate that, Craig, but I think we're kind of addressing all, because some may not have that same standard of,
Well, that's
not
what
gonna
I'm
count.
saying.
So I think we need to do with a base.
Washing sets.
Right. So
We call myself.
what did you say, 10, 15?
I'd say 15.
I say 15, because I don't think after 10 embalmings, you could raise vessels confidently on your own.
So just for clarification, like what I believe that the way it was interpreted in years past is not just like willy-nilly go in and put socks on somebody and that counts as an embalming, right? I'm talking about preparing the body for public viewing, right? Bathing and disinfection, setting features, dressing and casketing, or dressing and preparing on a viewing dais or something to that effect, right? That's what, and we have an authorization that was approved by this, not you individually, but in years past. It was a minimum preparation authorization that gives us specific authorization to perform specific things to prepare a body for viewing. And another reason this came up was because when I worked like 100 years ago for a corporate funeral home, we went to the position where we said, we require ID viewing of any cremation. As a company, we want someone in that family to view the body, sign off on the papers that that is in fact John Doe, right? And that we haven't misidentified somebody before cremation. And we would have the family sign a form, and they may still do that. I don't know. But what happened was they also instructed us as a company that we would charge a fee to the family for performing that service. We called it an ID view. And the board ruled that you cannot compel a family to have something done in your funeral home and then make them pay for it, right? And so we split the hairs of what's an ID view versus what is a final viewing. And an ID view is like you see on the TV. Obviously, it's not, those of us that are in the business know, but you pull the sheet back, and that's how they look from the point that they were removed from the place of death. Tubes, IVs, no feature set, no bathing. It's just for someone to say, yes, I positively identify these remains as my dad, and I sign it for them, right? Final viewing is different, where we create a situation where it's pleasant in a sense for the people to be able to have a final viewing of their loved one where some dignity has been restored to that person. But it requires by law and statute that the body is bathed and disinfected, right? And then you can set or not set features if you are holding a viewing for the public, right? So that to me is what would differentiate between telling my apprentice, we have a graveside service tomorrow, go dress Mr. Smith, right? And we'll put him in the casket in the morning and take him to the cemetery. There's not going to be any open casket viewing. That to me is not an embalming, but it can only be done by an embalmer and embalmer apprentice, right? So again, if you have a facility that doesn't have an embalmer apprentice or an embalmer, they should not be dressing bodies and putting them in the casket.
Piggybacking off of that comment, most mortuary schools have 10 embalmings to graduate. Why not make it can give the students their money's worth. That they can say, yes, I've completed 10 or 15 embalming in school with a licensed embalmer and, teacher. So then everyone is getting what they need.
I may on that one, a student who's also an apprentice can count those. If they're only an intern, though, it doesn't count. But we have some situations where a student is also an apprentice, in which case that works out. But the rules are specific about requirements for an intern versus those for an apprentice.
Yeah, you have to work 30 hours a week.
Aren't there also apprentices that don't go to college yet? They serve their apprenticeship before they go, so that's not gonna work.
I think there's a risk of becoming too pedantic with this, right? That I think we need to look more at the standardization of what is the final outcome that we're looking for, right? And so I think we're on the right track of maybe specifying a reduction of arterial embalming. But there are many facets to embalming that aren't just about injecting chemicals into arteries, right? And so we, again, need to trust our professional licensees who are acting as preceptors that if there's a valid educational opportunity for their apprentice to participate in preparation of a decedent, that case should count towards their development as a fully licensed embalmer. Because if we really lane this in, we're going to have a lot of people who all they can do is inject decedents, but they're not going to know how to do cosmetics. They're not going to know how to fix a decapitation. They're not going to know how to treat a decedent who died in a house fire because they will not have that skill set afforded to them. So I do think this needs to go to advisory committee, and I think we should move the rest of this discussion to executive session. I think there's some things that maybe are confidential, but the reassurance to our public members who are here today and to our listening abroad is that we will address this and we'll address this as soon as possible.
Yes, and if we could actually ground it on executive session there might be a possibility we could come out here with a temporary ruling. Because to say from this point forward is still arbitrary, right? We need to arm staff the rule to be able to implement it.
Go ahead, Ryan.
I feel that if we're going to be forming a advisory committee, that I would urge the committee to also review and I think this is part of the plan, but just making sure this is said for the record, that it should include apprentice funeral service practitioners, and it should also focus on giving a definition for assist, because we have a very paralleled dynamic with apprentice funeral service practitioners who provide logs where for competency demonstrated, they show they handed out folders. So we don't know if they actually met or arranged any funerals or disposition through some form of direct contact with the family or representative, but somehow their supervisors think them handing out folders makes them qualified to be a funeral service practitioner.
My boss, when I served my apprenticeship, did not allow me to meet with families. I was only allowed to assist at funerals and embalm bodies. So
Cards or something.
And I was pretty back then too. Ryan, I would hope that you could be a part of this committee.
Yeah.
This affects you the most, and in this room, kind of, if that would be something you would be willing to do, because you're the one that has to deal with this the most, and I don't want this to be on your shoulders without the understanding of how they got to that point.
Yeah, I would be glad to participate in any way I can, obviously, time permitting.
Well, they'll meet at midnight.
And he has a unique perspective because he's a licensed.
Right, your perspective and you being on the staff and dealing with licensees all the time is imperative that you're a part of this, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think, yeah.
Okay.
I think it's a good conclusion
I
to the
appreciate
discussion. And we
you
can-
guys, all of you. So now we're gonna go into general discussion. Thank you, Mr. Bone, and I think we should name a funeral home after each other. Gaskill Bone, Gaskill Bone Funeral Home or Bone Gaskill, such pretty names, yeah. Yeah.
Got to do something with those names.
I know. Like the vein
like a
doctor
lot,
named
maybe.
Dr. Rippy, yeah. Okay, so
Board best practice.
Board best practices. You're up, Mallory.
Yes, just a very quick reminder, we'll have another best practices survey for the board members to complete in July. That's the update, less than 5 minutes.
Good.
Nice.
I like how you do that. Miss Felton. For the
Annual financial report. Overall, I think the IDP or IDS fund and the state board's own separate funds, they're in a very good position financially. The one thing that I've kind of been focusing on is the civil penalties that have been and what's being collected and things like that. And so Chad helped me go through a bunch of them and kind of figure out where we're at and what we need to do. But overall, I think the board's budget is in good condition and they should be proud of themselves for keeping expenses down and helping the IDF fund grow. And so I'm very pleased with how things are going.
And if I may, Nancy feels like she's annoying, or maybe or just, but she asks great questions. And the last few months have been really difficult because I don't know what happened, but Dashard Financial, I don't know if they moved to a new system or staff, but the financials were just all over the place. And from, I think September, right, till December, all of them were all messed up. And it took us months to get those accurate accounting. So thank you, Nancy, for your patience and asking those
Thanks for
those
answering.
questions because they
Two
do.
pages worth of, okay, why is this? Why is this? Why is this? Why is this?
But it helps me too, because there were a lot of things that I had to pay attention to and I probably missed a couple things as I was reviewing. So I always appreciate your questions because they're right on with the things you ask.
That's not what he told me. Okay, Ryan, for licensing renewal update.
Yeah, I'll keep this brief. I think you saw in the executive director's report, we had a fairly significant number of individuals whose licenses appear to have permanently lapsed. The number looks much more large on the ED reports. One thing I'll point out is that several of those individuals were apprentices that hold both the apprentice funeral service practitioner certificate as well as the apprentice embalmer certificate, but they'll be listed twice on the ED report. So essentially that's just one individual with 2 licenses. So the total number that I'm currently looking at is 95 individuals who permanently lapsed. This also does not include pre-need statistics. The pre-need licensees are on a separate renewal cycle. And so those licensees are still in a position where their licenses have expired, but they have until the end of May to renew and pay a reinstatement fee in order to become active again. So that's really all I wanted to mention regarding the renewal cycle. If there's any questions, let me know.
I just have one comment for you. And it's more, not so much the licensees, but as with the facilities and with the cemetery licenses and stuff, that the Cemetery Association would like to work with this board more closely in getting some of the smaller, more rural cemeteries that if they're looking, that they're not renewing and stuff, of how can the association board work to get them through the process. I've been approached by some of the members that they've worked with some that they're an 80-year-old individual that is a volunteer on the board and they don't know how to run the online system. So trying to work to maybe have workshops or something that the association can host with the board to get them through that process or going on with that.
That's a great suggestion.
Because we want the perception from the Cemetery Association to be that the board is not this big bad wolf, that we're here to help with all of that. And so we want to work with that to keep some of those smaller cemeteries from becoming unoperating cemeteries or operating without their licensure. So.
Good.
That's a great comment.
Oh, and I agree 100% with Melissa. We have cemeteries that we only go to once every 3 or 4 years. That means they maybe have 1 burial a year. one every other year. And so trying to keep some of those volunteers compliant is a challenge. And that was my first thing. But then secondly, so when it says permanently lapsed, what do they have to do to get reinstated?
Reapply.
That they don't have
Start over again.
exam again.
Depends on the circumstances. In most cases, no, but there are some, that's a very, how shall I say, multifaceted dynamic. So this is something that we are currently, at least I'm hoping to address with our AAG, because I've had some questions over the years that I've yet to get resolution on. So I would say that it's relative to the individual. Apprentices, for instance, they're much easier where we don't have to, they haven't taken the exam, so they just straightforward have to reapply. They, in most cases, are reissued, I shouldn't say most cases, they are reissued the same certificate numbers because they have 48 aggregate months to complete their apprenticeship. So it's nuanced for apprentices. Yeah, I don't want to babble, so I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
If the person lapsed at the end of 2023 and then wanted a FSP or an embalmer or dual, then they wanted to re-up, they would not need to redo this exam. Would that be correct?
Depends on how long they've been licensed.
Oh, like years, 50.
Years, if they've been licensed for years, then yes, they would,
Okay.
or that, sorry, then no, they would not need to retake.
Okay, thank you.
Don't let it lapse.
No.
That's number one.
And then Ted's update.
I know, I apologize. If I can add one more dynamic here, or one more statement, is that if you do see people that are on that ED report and you know that they didn't mean to permanently lapse and they feel like they didn't get the notice or there was an issue on our part, we are open to acknowledging that we're not perfect and we're willing to look at those cases on or look at those individuals on a case-by-case basis. So make sure anybody that you're aware of that didn't mean to lapse, have them reach out to me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
So thank you. And am I okay to move on to the TEDS?
Please.
So TEDS, for those who aren't aware, is the travel expense detail sheet. This is something for those who have traveled to the board meeting today. Those members who've traveled to the meeting today will complete. I've got a form for everyone other than those who traveled long distances. Kevin, Rugi, and Melissa, I'll work with you on a somewhat separate basis. All other members, if you wouldn't mind addressing me before you leave the meeting today, and I've got a form for you to sign to help hopefully streamline this process.
Enabling us.
I think I'm still owed 20 cents, Chad.
Yeah, did someone bring a quarter? Because we'll now.
Well, just hold on to it because there'll be 50 cents by
I
Tuesday.
told you I'd email it to you, didn't you?
So the update is just wanting you to know that we are working to make sure that we're staying on top of these TEDs following the board meetings, and appreciate everyone's patience in the past, and I'll conclude there.
Appreciate your patience with me in the past, specifically. Okay, executive appointments, Chad.
Thanks, Rob. So wanted to announce a couple exciting things. Well, Craig has last executive appointments, he was reappointed. So Craig is up through 2027, end of 2027. And then two appointments that are coming up. We were saddened that Joseph had to resign. I worked with the governor's office and we're actually able to find someone who I talked with, and I think it's gonna be a great addition. His name is Neil Nigas. He's affiliated with PCC for many years and is a member or board member of two kind of aging associations. So I think he will contribute a great deal to this board. So both he and Melissa, Miss Melissa for her reappointment, they will be up for the spring executive appointments. And then the next one is the September one that we will be filling Dave Bones' exited position. And I think I might be looking at the person who potentially might fill that. So, as you know, we had two at different times who were set up to go, but unfortunately one didn't reside in the state and the other one just resigned at the last, withdrew their name at the last minute. So I had a couple swings and misses, but I think we'll get a home run next time. Exciting, then we'll be fully stocked with board members.
Fully board.
Yes. Yes.
Up for reappointment this June,
Are you? Okay, so I'll be notified at that and then I can let you know.
unless you want to miss it so that I'm.
Oh, no, not at all, not at all. No, and I'm just notified at different, probably when it's closer to the time. And then you're probably notified as well. Is that right, Craig? Melissa, were you notified?
No, I think it was a board meeting that
Okay,
we discussed it.
so I'm the one, I
You're
guess.
the messenger.
Because sometimes I'm just not sure how workday works, of who they, because it's kind of spotty on who they notify and when. So I'll keep up on that. Good with that topic.
Excellent. Go to number 6,
Okay,
the conference.
yeah, the conference. I attended the international conference where they're the ones who administer both the national exam as well as our FSP law exam now. It's been a few years since I went last. It was in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's a wonderful place. They have 2,000 restaurants in that city. It's like coastal town Disneyland on steroids, basically. So I'm kind of jumping, but this article was in our newsletter, but I'm just going to go over some things that were discussed. First of all, it's a great opportunity to interact with colleagues of regulators from other states and Canada, and just kind of have a discussion, able to discuss trends and challenges, that type of thing. So it's always great to interact with these individuals. The two most important things the two most important topics, I guess, from my perspective, was FTC was there and talked about some potential changes coming with the funeral rule, and of course, natural organic reduction. Many states were kind of a buzz about it, many states are either considering legislation or in the process of introducing the concept. So back to the FTC presentation, they brought up that they recently did some public, I think, gathering of comments and that type of thing, to things that they're considering. These are some of the kind of high level topics that they're considering of adjusting or changing related to the funeral rule. Accurate online posting and inclusion of price disclosures, how third-party costs are listed on the general price list. Should the basic services fee be amended? How should the funeral rule incorporate new forms of disposition? Should the embalming disclosure be amended? Some maintain that it is confusing. Should the general price list be revised to be easier for consumers to read? And the other one was, should the funeral rule be changed to better address historically underserved populations? So FTC had multiple comment times and opportunities to present comments. And once again, if it's electronic, there's links, so you can click on the FTC actual things. It's not working when I click on it. But so there were opportunities, and I believe NFDA made comments. I don't know if it went to the OFDA level or the state level, but many kind of spoke and presented comments based on that. The other thing, NOR obviously is a hot topic. It's currently a recognized form of legal disposition in Washington, Colorado, Oregon, Vermont, California, New York, and Nevada by priority of state who enacted it. I included in your packets a picture, and this was kind of the highlight. Rick Little he is a board member from Washington State, and he's actually a Mount Hood Community College Advisory Committee member. He made a presentation about NOR because it's Washington State is the first state that enacted it, so they have more time in the field doing it. And he provided he kind of passes this cup around. It's the result of a pig completed in the NOR process. So that's what it looks like.
Okay.
Yes, they did a pig. Yeah, that's what they experimented first with. my
That's a
understanding.
natural cause.
And then they had bacon after. No, no, they not bacon.
It was
No, no,
barbecue
no.
sauce.
So that's, everyone is kind of curious what it looks like. So that's the picture of the result. So assumedly, the human looks similar to that. So it was a good meeting. I feel like I learn a lot every time and just interact with other regulators, which is always a good opportunity. So any questions about that?
How big is this vessel and how big was the pig? I'm just curious in terms of. No, I saw the picture, but
Well, the result of it is, I think, 2 to 3 yards of compost.
Okay.
When it's completed.
Got it.
Yeah.
It's a significant amount.
Yeah, it is. And I think Mallory and the inspectors, they've actually been to a facility, so they can talk more about, I don't know, do you want to share more about your experience? maybe?
Sure. So James and I went and visited 2 facilities in Washington. One of them was Rehome, which I believe, the pictures from their final product is kind of more like mulchy. And their vessels are large rectangles that open from the top. And then we also visited Earth, and their final product is much more like soil. And their vessels are cylinders that kind of open from the side. So they both use kind of a different mixture of natural products to help with the decomposition.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm happy to go into it in more detail later, but
Thanks.
yeah, really fascinating and interesting.
Old musicians never die, they just decompose.
Oh, God.
Okay, proposed administrative
Oh, no.
No?
OFDA convention.
Oh, OFDA?
Can't miss that.
I'm just gonna skip over Angela McKinn's topic.
Okay. So the state OFDA convention is coming up on May 6th, 7th, and 8th, and it's going to be in Eugene at the Graduate Hotel. The agenda is out. There's a lot of good, diverse topics that will be discussed. We'll have a presentation from the folks who administer the OFDA trust. We're also going to have Tiffany Brown talk about emergency management, and she is an emergency manager for counties. So I think that's going to be a good presentation. And we'll also have presentations from folks from the Creutzfeldt-Jakob Disease Foundation.
Good.
As well as from the DCBS. There will also be Micah Truman from Return Home. So also another focus on natural organic reduction. So a lot of good stuff, and then kind of all the standard things that will have lots of networking, and there's a lot of vendors signed up. We encourage everybody to attend. The block of rooms though at the Graduate Hotel comes off the docket this Friday. So if you're like, yes, I'm going to be staying there, get your room done today. Because we are worried that the hotel will then fill up with other guests outside of people in the death care industry. So it should be a great convention, and we're looking forward to it.
Thank you, Angela. Now we can do the proposed administrative rule.
Okay. As you recall, this was direction by board to staff to draft some proposed administrative rules regarding facility manager proximity to where they're actually managing. So you'll see the top part basically shows what it is now, and below is the proposed amended administrative rules. So I guess we will maybe open it up for comment.
Sure.
I thought you guys did a great job putting this together, because this was kind of like throwing spaghetti against the wall a little bit. I support the concept of the 200-mile radius, but I think the biggest concern is that we didn't want people who are out of state entities being listed as the principal for locations, because there seemed to be kind of just an issue of oversight. And I think this still kind of keeps it broad enough that we move it forward. I do think this is maybe just the first step in a bigger conversation though about how we facilitate principals and what the expectation of a principal is. But I just really commend the staff for putting this together, because it's a great move forward.
Any other comments?
Is this something we need to vote on or anything?
Yeah, you will move us forward and we will commence the permanent rulemaking if the board signs off on this.
Do I hear a motion to approve the new rulemaking on
Nancy
this?
Tucker will move.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You want a roll call?
No, I'm sorry, I was distracted. Would you mind saying who first, who motioned?
Angela and Craig, second.
And appreciate everyone's contributions and work on this, because this was really, as you recall, this has become a kind of a topic that we've talked about that comes up. I mean, we encounter those quite often now, but this is one that we wanted to address because it seemed to come up, as Angela said, more and more frequently. So we wanted to address that appropriately. So it's fair too. It's not, it's not pedantic, shall we say, but
It's the word of the day.
it
a lot of syllables.
Doesn't account for funeral establishments.
Okay, but it's not too constrictive and takes into account situations, but I think it appears to be fair and address the concerns I think the board had.
Do you have a concern, Marianne?
Sorry, I'm guessing that the committee already dealt with this, but for 13B, it only said, it doesn't say that the manager of a funeral establishment has to be able to arrive within 12 hours. The funeral establishment in A, the manager of a funeral establishment has to do with distance, and B has to do with time.
That was intentional.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, M365.
Yes. We were somewhat disappointed. I think you recall last meeting, we were hoping that everyone would be kind of in the M365 cloud this time, and unfortunately it didn't work out. And we encountered some complications, which is why all the iPads who are on their last leg are all here. But we were able to do a test, and
Thank you.
Deb was a part of that. So I wanted to just give her an opportunity to kind of share kind of her experience of us trying to migrate over there.
Well, it was interesting. We tried to migrate I have an AOL account. I have so many emails, addresses. And so we started with my AOL account. That didn't work. Then we went to something else and that didn't work. And then we went to, I have University of Wisconsin. I have an Outlook account. So we tried to merge through there, but that didn't work. It kept blocking it. And so I just created my own Outlook account. I have like 5 email addresses now. And I created my own Outlook account while we were trying to do all this stuff, and I got right in. So I think the big easiest way to do it is to create your own Outlook account and you'll get right in because it was so easy. But yeah, it took a while. And trying all the different ways to get in, but we finally did it, and I guess I'm set, so.
Thanks, Devin. I appreciate you being the test for our board.
I was on spring break, so I wasn't doing anything but sitting in my recliner anyway.
Because we actually did it in collaboratively with Pete's board, and he had a board member who interestingly was walking the whole time on a treadmill or something.
Yeah,
And
that
he
was
had,
really.
I thought he was walking in the woods. He had which is interesting.
Yeah.
But so we had two users from different boards try it, and it was quite challenging.
It was very true.
So I just want everyone to know, we're working on that to try to work out the bugs and everything. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be ready in July to kick that off.
Yeah, I mean, I just.
Chad.
Yeah. Yes.
This is Beth. I am on Teams on an Outlook account today, and it's working beautifully.
Excellent. And that's great, Beth, that you already have an Outlook account, because most likely everyone else will need to establish one at some point, Deb, right?
Yeah, because it would merge with my University of Wisconsin Outlook account, and I had to create my own.
And I think that's
my personal one.
Yeah, I think that's what we determined kind of after many trials and errors on everything, which was really weird how it kept going to your other accounts for unrelated.
Yeah, it was just really bizarre.
Yeah.
So I have a question with functionality, right? So are you then through your Outlook account going into the cloud server?
Logging into Teams, and you'll be added to a Teams channel, and then you'll be able to access all of the documents through Teams rather than us uploading them to the iPad, so you can use your personal device.
Okay, and then with that, with my personal device, can I write notes and I have my own account with notes on it,
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
Yes.
Is there a functionality, this is my biggest concern, if a member decides to print, are we able to print or not print? Because my preference is nothing on paper.
Well, we brought up the issue, I think, because I think multiple people brought up the confidentiality last time. I brought that up and state IT doesn't seem too concerned with it. They assume it could, things could be shared in other ways, in other means. So I can follow up with them about that, but there didn't seem to be a concern about accessibility to board members and being able to print and that type of thing, because I brought it up.
Well, anytime you've got a document like this, you can take a picture on your phone.
Yeah, I mean, there's ways, so.
Yes, but
I agree.
And yeah, and we do our IT training every year, so there's that understanding that everyone.
Keeps on freezing up, so I said, screw it.
Well, the only thing,
That's terrible.
and I trust everybody.
Yeah, we share a lot of confidential documents, and there's a way when you set up your documents and document sharing that you can set permissions about who can see it, and particularly in Teams. There's a way that, if you're on the call that day, you can see the documents. If you're not, you have to be, and it'll even tell you if people join later after today will not be able to see this document.
Yes.
At least on our Teams, we use Teams extensively at my work. And the same way, when you set up the document, there's a way to set sharing properties, whether the people can print, whether they can change the document.
Yes, and the only reason why I'm bringing it up,
Let's get through this and then.
if it's digital, I'm okay with that, right? If it stays digital, is that either, I think on record, each board member should at least agree, as like an NDA, that it is their ultimate responsibility if they decide to print, that they will dispose of that document in a confidential manner. And we can assume it, that we're doing it, but everybody has to agree, because anytime that anybody prints anything, it's on them to make sure that, I mean, I can tell you horror stories about confidential document in the middle of a cross intersection because it flew out of the car, right? And so that's just what makes me nervous in terms of the board of this. I mean, I support it. I just feel, be considered that everybody, it's no big deal, just an NDA saying, yeah, I agree. But ultimately, it's my responsibility to make sure that these documents, especially the executive material.
Yeah, and that concern, Ruby, is valid, and I will ask DAF IT if they have something, or we could draft something up.
Yeah, that would be great. That'd bring me some comfort.
Absolutely.
So we got a few more things to go us through. So if we can just keep moving along here, the newsletter,
Very good.
good job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Newsletter was sent out last week. And email to all the interested persons. We'll be posting a copy of that on our website as well. So if you didn't see it in your email, you can always access it via our website, and as well as all prior editions. Thank you to all staff, as always. It's an effort to put together the newsletter. It's not me, so I appreciate everyone's contributions. If you have recommendations for future articles, please send them to me. And then we are also including facility highlights as well. So we have a Google form where facilities can fill that out and be highlighted in upcoming issues. The link to that Google form is included in the newsletter. We had our first facility highlight this feature. So looking forward to more of those. Feel free to sign up for that.
Yeah, your photo of Somerville Cemetery has just motivated me to get over to Eastern Oregon and check it out.
Yeah, they share that with James.
Yeah.
It's a cool place. They got a little chapel and we do. Yeah, it's a cool place.
Yes, always looking for more photos. So summary photos, send them my way for the next edition. Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out directly.
Great article.
Excellent. IDP.
Yeah, so in your packet, you saw the year in review that we provide every year about this time. First page or second page kind of gives an accounting of it. And I guess the main thing is the bottom, we're just recommending that the IDP reimbursement rate remain at $5.50. And we will just continue to monitor that. So I guess at the end, we'll need a board approval of this.
Mhm.
Page 3, you'll see by region, I think people are interested in the claims, the amount of claims and per region and that data. On page 4, you'll see the regions and you'll see that the claim submitted significantly increased this year. But you'll see that the claims paid per year pretty much didn't increase much compared to last year. And I think the reason behind that is that we are being much more critical in the requirements. I think I've mentioned that every year, or every time that we're reviewing this, we're being more diligent and being a little more enforcing of the requirements. I think now that everyone's aware of those requirements. So you'll see that number. So you'll see we kind of provide a 2-year kind of snapshot with all this data. Veterans on page 6, that's always a great stat that veterans are honored and recognized for the service they provided and receive all those benefits and honors. I believe, was this the first time we added race?
Yes.
Race. We added race to that and gender as well. So those are 2 new categories that we added to this report. And domicile unknown, correct, because that is a fairly recent addition to the designation with vital records if I recall. These are important data points, and we added those, I think last year, started tracking that, right? Last year, Sylvie? Okay. And then then you'll see the last page 8, how funeral homes acquired incidents, claims completed, incomplete, and then process time has increased a bit, but I think just because of the numbers that we received, the increase. Any questions on the data? Sylvie just continues to administer this program very well.
Sylvie, do you have any comments? Okay.
The report is great, like
Yes.
the number forecasting and the representation of the data really brings a lot of transparency to this. So thank you for your focus on that.
Thank you.
I guess we can get a approval for that.
Oh, yeah. So do I have a motion to approve the IDP report?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed. Disciplinary action matrix. Well, that was hard.
Yeah, it's a tongue twister. All right. We, as you know, we talked about this being a necessary thing, and we actually want to schedule something and implement the meeting. So we're thinking between now and the next board meeting. And I think we're kind of targeting June. Is that correct, Nancy, for availability?
Yeah.
Based on
Yeah.
June. So if everyone would send me their availability in June, because we'd like this to be an in-person, off-site, a less formal situation. If you recall, we were going to start the disciplinary action matrix where we will build that out, at least kind of the first iteration of it. And it'll be an evolving document, but we need to start. So it's about that time. So if everyone would just a request, if everyone would provide your availability in June. Yes.
Does the board want me to attend this meeting to explain the tracker and
Staff will be attending.
all staff? You guys are stuck. I don't think they know where the tracker is, but you're right. They should be there. Sorry, Sylvie.
Welcome to company, right?
Hey.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Go to a grand.
Our funds are doing very well. I think we need to go to Vegas or something.
At least Spirit Mountain or something.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so exciting opportunity that we will, just a time for us to kind of get to know one another, as formal information, but also get some important work done. So if everyone can get their June availability to me as soon as possible, that'd be great.
Okay, the last item on the list, sir.
All right, strategic plan. This was emailed to you, I think, yesterday. I've been working with the Office of Cultural Change. Every agency is required to have a strategic plan, I think by June. And this is something that I worked with them of the first iteration again. And the plan is that, you know, everyone reviews this. I can go over this, direct me to move forward. I will work with the Office of Cultural Change, and we will schedule a strategic planning session in the near future, which will mean inviting representatives probably from OFD, the two associations, other relevant community partners as well to, you know, plan more detail, kind of the, shall we say, 3 to 5 year plan for this agency and where we plan on going. So I don't know if you wanted me to go over the whole thing or just see if people had questions or maybe things that we're missing. I don't, what are your?
Yeah, I think we should just keep moving forward. And if you have any questions, please, we could do that now.
So it could be just direction to move forward with the
yeah,
Office of Cultural Change.
Definitely
Okay.
move forward.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank
Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Here endeth.
We are done with general meeting. We're gonna go into, no, we're not doing potty breaks anymore, so,
Bring your jug.
we're here the whole time.
And thanks for the visitor.
Yeah, thank you. Coming back in.
Thank you.
Are we taking a break?
Yeah.
Did you call a break?
I think this is an unofficial call of a break.
Bye. Nancy says yes, and I agree.